Hey kids, what's going on? It's X-Ray Vision in Quattro Cinco Studios coming to you live. And I have a very special guest today, Mark Wild, who I met through Twitter. I was bouncing around Twitter and I was sending out invites and trying to find guests and see what's going on. And I saw Mark's page and I saw not only a picture of him hanging out with Richard Hart, but also the mention of a book that he wrote that is now available on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Hello, everyone.
And then I was lucky enough to catch Corey Costa's interview with you, and I learned a ton of stuff about you and racing, and some of that stuff we can go over again for people that didn't get a chance to see that. But I did put a link to that one if you guys haven't seen that interview with Corey Costa. Definitely check it out. There's a lot of information in that one as well. Other than that, thanks for meeting me. We have a really strange, what is a 14-hour time difference that
Yes,
we're.
correct.
I was like carrying the one and counting on my fingers and toes, and then finally you're like, no, just show up at this time, and it'll work. So I trusted you, and it worked out. I'm very very excited.
Yeah.
So like I said, Mark was I believe born in Poland. Is this correct?
Yes.
But you didn't stay in. You're not in Poland currently. So there's a story
Mm,
there, right?
no, I'm not. Yes, I actually left Poland shortly after finishing my college. So that was, I don't know, 17 years ago, 16 years ago, something like that. My first destination was still in Europe. It was Dublin in Ireland, where I spent additional 3 years, maybe four, if I remember correctly. After sometimes 300 days of rain and cold every single year, waiting for the summer which never comes, I had enough. Right, it was just, it's a nice, friendly country full of opportunities, but the weather especially got into me, and somehow, roughly in the middle of my stay in Ireland, I went for holidays to Thailand for about 2 weeks. Then I came back, and nothing wanted to be the same anymore. And roughly a year later, I started to plan. Let's just go one way and see what happens, pretty much, right? So that was about 12 years ago. Since then, I lived in Thailand, in Burma, in Cambodia, and spent roughly about 2 years in different places in Latin America. Eventually came back to Thailand, to Bangkok, which is my base, and that's where the 14 hours time difference between us come from these days. Um, Prior to doing anything with crypto and discovering hacks, I worked in the tourism industry. So I worked for hotels, I worked for river cruises, I worked for some travel agencies, mostly all over Southeast Asia, a little bit in Latin America. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, crypto was sort of a side hobby since 2017. I kind of came across it. I tried to learn a little bit, put a little money into it, seeing how it's working actually. Mostly experimenting with different things. I wouldn't call it trading. It was more of like, okay, let's buy this, let's hold it for a while, let's sell it, let's see what happens. So you buy a little bit cheaper, the price goes a little bit higher, you sell it, and then you try to understand. Was it just a random push of a button, or do you actually know anything? It From today's perspective, I know it was a random push of a button. It was just like, well, oh, look at this thing. It grew 15%. So yeah, I'm 15% in profit. Let's sell it. But there was no skills or knowledge there whatsoever. Yes, I kept working on my full-time jobs until 2020. And this is when a good friend of mine introduced me to hacks. So I bought my first hacks roughly in March 2020. Dived into the system, tried to understand as much as I can about everything hex related. Probably watched every single Richard video on YouTube related to hex, and not only. And roughly since then, I could say, once hex started to grow in value, I had a lot of stakes. I had the staking ladder as well, which was coming out. It's still coming out every month for a few years still. I have a few annual ones which will be with me for another 12 years or 13, given that I set them up in the very beginning. And it gave me, you could call it like sort of financial freedom that I never really came back to a full-time job for someone else, right? Which doesn't mean I don't do anything. It's just I don't have a boss anymore, which suits me very well. Um, and at some stage, I think it was roughly beginning of this year, I kind of came up with an idea. You know what? Let's try to give back to the community a little bit. Let's try to create something which hopefully will help to onboard more people into Hex. And in the same time, I'm not a YouTuber. I didn't see a need for additional YouTube channel. We have a lot of them, and of course, the more the better. But it's not my set of skills really. It's not my personality. So I decided, well, let's write a book. I'm better with a written word than a camera. So I started to put it all together in the beginning of the year, and the book was published roughly a year after, on the third anniversary of Hex on December 2nd. So that's 2 weeks ago, roughly. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of introduction.
Let me ask you a question. Do you remember the first thing you noticed, the first trip you took to Thailand out of the out of the rain of Ireland? What was the first thing you noticed, like right off the bat, and what were some of the things that I guess maybe convinced you this is a place that you want to spend more of your time?
That's a very, very interesting question, right? I mean, the first experience, it was chaos, right? It's like you come from a very cold country, fairly organized, or very well organized, actually, because it's obviously Western Europe, so everything is, almost everything is by the rule. And then you come here, and and it's the heat, it's the humidity, it's the traffic, and it's the colors, and everything just attacks you in a way, right? So you walk for the first time on a street in Bangkok, and there's like pink taxis, yellow taxis, green taxis. There's fresh fruits everywhere, exotic fruits which you've never seen before, plus that heat, which makes you not really think very straight, especially when you're after a long flight and a little bit jet lag. So the first impression is, it gets to you, not necessarily in a positive way. It's just like, whoa, where I am and what's actually happening to me. And then, it cooled down a little bit after 2-3 days. So I said, okay, I get what it is. Let's try to figure out where are we going next. We visited a few places in Thailand after Bangkok. And to be honest, after 2 weeks, I felt a little bit tired of all of it. It's just, not my culture, not my vibe really. It was like really a really weird place at the first impression. That was back in 2007. So I was actually happy I'm coming back to Ireland. It was like, the plane touched down back in Dublin, and I was like, okay, that's more familiar now again. But then, you get out of the plane. Yeah, it's green because it's always raining, right? So you see this grass and you see all these trees. So it's green, wet, and gray as well, because you almost have no sunshine in Ireland. So basically, probably after 2 or 3 days, I just lived with that memory of Thailand, right? And I, nothing in specific really, but this whole impression of this chaos, of this colors, of this humidity and heat, and it just stayed with me for another year or something. It was kind of like that was so weird that something dragged me back to this, right?
Now, did somebody suggest Thailand to you, or did you just hear about it from, like, what made you decide to make that journey in the first place?
Yeah, that's quite a good one, because I think we were planning to go somewhere with my girlfriend back then, and a few places were on the table, including the US, but something warm, so more like California or Florida. We looked into this, and it was just like, yeah, okay, that's not a good idea. And it was actually my girlfriend's idea, and she was like, why not Thailand? My first reaction was like, okay, what do I know about Thailand? It's hot and they have elephants. That was my first reaction.
It's hot and they have what?
Elephants.
Elephants.
Yeah, and this is like the first thing which 15 years ago came to my mind. I was like, okay, let's look how it actually works, right? And then, we found the flights. I started to chat to some coworkers at the job I had at the time. Some of them have been to Thailand, and they said they all love it, and they start recommending different hotels, places to see, to visit. I was like, yeah, okay, let's go ahead with this. We can at least ask around. 15 years ago, there was not so many not so much information about this kind of things, like what you should do and see in Thailand
Okay, well, what
when
year
you
was
visit.
this? This was in the 90s, right?
2007, 2006, 2007.
Oh, so the early aughts. So at least there was the internet, right?
Yeah, but
Okay, that's
the
that's a
content
big
was not
help.
that rich. Yeah, but the content was not that rich. It was still like, it was still this kind of time that you would actually go to a bookstore and buy the Lonely Planet guide
Yeah, yeah. And so you
to
were
read
like,
it and
okay,
see what you want to do, right? So these days,
yeah,
obviously, whatever you search for in related to any country, it comes up with everything you need to know, right?
yeah. The third visit, like the third secret beach, is on some website where you can actually go find where the all these spots. That's awesome. I did want to say hi to Mix AJ. He's a big fan of yours. We got Blue Collar Grunt in the house, and of course Hex Hoddle. He says, "Hey people, behave yourself, Hex Hoddle. We've got company over. We're trying to be a little more professional today." I'm just joking. He's awesome. So the other thing I noticed that it's not normal for all the people, let's say, that grew up in Poland. I know that a lot of people in Poland travel for work, but
Hmm.
the amount of, I would almost call it adventure that you bit off going to Ireland and then uh, Bangkok and all the other places you visited and lived. It seems like there's something inside of you as a person that would that you're willing to face these, I don't know, insecurities or fears or being uncomfortable in all these different cultures. As you said, the first time you went to Thailand, it sounds like it was pretty overwhelming, right? Just kind of hits
Correct.
you.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think it is in your that you value so much? And we can get into the racing cars and other stuff later. But
Sure.
also, it's not normal for people to write a book and finish it. A lot of people start books, but they don't finish them,
Hmm.
right? And it's not normal for someone to try on this many cultures. What do you think it is that was instilled in you or hardwired inside your soul that that made you want to take on these adventures and these tasks?
Okay. I think it's a combination of different factors, right? I started to travel very early with my parents. I still remember my first trip abroad. We went from Poland to Bulgaria when I was 5 years old. And obviously, I don't remember much from the trip itself, but I remember I was there, and I have like some images of some, like, ocean, well, not ocean, the sea actually, and some like weird memory of a hotel somewhere. So like very, today is just like some photos in my head. But this was the first experience traveling somewhere abroad. Obviously, we traveled a lot in Poland. When I was born, we still had communism in Poland, right? I was born in 1982, so we had like still 7 years of communism. So I kind of remember by the blur some things that, for example, we could go to Eastern Berlin back then for a trip, but you couldn't cross to Western Europe without special permissions, and you will not get one unless you are very well connected with the government agencies and so on. So I remember that. And then I think probably 18 or 19, I actually started to work as a journalist very early. I think I wrote my first commercial article, which means I just got paid for it when I was 16. Then I continued that for a few years, and I think when I was 18, I went for like my first official, let's call it a business trip. It was a press conference actually, which was in Manchester in the UK, fully paid by the organizers and so on. So that was another experience of like traveling on business, let's say. And then it picked up from there. So there was more and more traveling, mostly around Europe in the beginning. Then that probably kind of provoked the move to Ireland as well, because I was just curious for a start. It was like, you suddenly start seeing all of these places, and it's not like a Poland is a bad country to live or visit. But you just see that, well, you cross the border and everything is different, right? People are different, they speak different language, sometimes they eat different food, things change, whichever direction you're going, south from Poland, west from Poland, well, east from Poland, maybe not that much, but basically you start seeing these subtle differences. So this was probably one of the big factors, early traveling and a lot of traveling when I was still a teenager, let's say, in my early 20s. And on top of that, I actually graduated from political science in Poland with a focus on international stuff. And then I continued my education in Ireland as well, doing the international relations, actually international peace studies degree. So that also, you theoretically you learn about, other countries, politics of other countries, religions, cultures, and so on. So I think that kind of created that framework for me to, I actually think that these kind of degrees are useless these days. I haven't really used them, in any job, let's call it like this, or you can't really, I mean, you can become a, let's say, political scientist or an analyst of international relations, but that's very rare, right? These kind of degrees, they don't give you a clearly defined job or clearly defined set of skills. Like what you learn, a lot of things about everything, right? A bit of geography, a bit of history, a bit of culture, like I mentioned, and that probably made it much easier for me, right? Because okay, first 2 weeks was just holidays. I experienced the first weeks in Thailand was just holidays. I experienced only, mostly the good stuff. Nothing really bad happened. It was just hot and chaotic, but apart from it, it was interesting. And, we went to some nice beaches and nice islands and so on. So it was all a good experience. But then, when I started to think about like, how about going back there or going somewhere else and doing it permanently, I felt I'm kind of prepared because of all of this education stuff as well. Like it's not like, you've never even read where Thailand is, and you just jump on a plane and you go there. Yeah, obviously I had information about Thai history and the culture and religion and so on. So it's kind of like you don't have to become them. You don't have to like mingle completely with them and just become a Buddhist yourself, let's say, right away. Um, but it makes it easier, right? Because you understand what they believe in and how they operate. At least I thought so at that stage, right? And that does it answer your question?
Yeah, well, and on one hand, it sounds like as doors were opened to you and opportunities were offered, you were quick to take them and kind of see what's on the other side, almost like an explorer or a seeker, right? You're like you wanted to know and experience something that wasn't already ready available to you. But then on the other hand, there's this a pattern of building on. Okay, well, I've got this skill or this experience. I'm going to build a little bit more, a little bit more. So there's like this almost like you're building a masterpiece or something
Hmm.
that you can see, but the world doesn't see yet. I don't know. Does it sound like I might be close to so what I'm
Um,
hearing here? Or?
you know, I I wish it was true, right? I wish if I had a master plan, like you're saying, which is leading somewhere. And there were times when I believed I had one, um, but life on in this kind of countries is full of surprises, right? So just to give you an example, in 2012, I had the job I didn't really like in Malaysia for roughly 2 or 3 months, and I just wanted to get away from a quite toxic situation back then. And I emailed a few of my contacts, and one of them happened to be in Burma. It was a Burmese guy who owns a travel agency. And it was just a bit of a luck and timing, I guess, because I just asked him, hey, I'm around, and do you need any help? I mean, do you have any openings available? Is there anything I could do for you? And it happened so that he was actually looking back then for a product manager, which basically in tourism is responsible for choosing, selecting hotels, choosing where people will go to, how they will get there, booking the cars or testing the cars, making sure that, safety features are there and so on and so forth. So he asked me like, okay, so do you want to come and how much money do you want for that? So we negotiated that a little bit, but it was a good offer. And I never had a plan to go to Burma, especially that again, my only knowledge back then was like there is some crazy military government there, and and parts of one of the Rambo movies was filmed there, or at least pretended to be filmed there, and like, that's all I know. But in the same time, I've been there before. I visited like out of Thailand is very, very close by. Actually, Thailand has a border with Burma, so I visited. I kind of knew what's going on. I knew it's not dangerous for start for people like me, let's say. So yeah, okay, let's go there and see what happens, right? And I planned, okay, even if I don't like it, I say I will do a 2 years contract because that's what we
I'm
agreed
sorry,
to.
you say a 3-year contract?
2 years,
2 years.
yeah,
That's a huge commitment.
pretty much, yeah.
But you're saying no matter how bad, I know I can make it 2 years, right?
Pretty much, I thought so, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And when I just landed there, everything was like working well for me, at least. The country is obviously, very, very challenging. So, but what I'm trying to say is like that. Okay, never planned to go to Burma. Went to Burma, liked it. Instead of 2 years, I stayed 5 with different companies. After 2 years, I moved on from that company to another one. And it wasn't really a big plan, right? And after 5 years, I was actually thinking, you know what, since I know the country so well, maybe I will stay. But then I had 2 proposals on the table. One was from one company in Burma, so I kind of realized if I commit for another 2 years, I'll probably stay forever here, right? And the other proposal was from Cambodia, which is also not so far. And I was like, well, I still feel that energy. Maybe let's try something new. Let's go to Cambodia, see what happens. So I don't stay in Burma permanently. I chose Cambodia and I stayed there for a while. But from the time perspective, even if I stayed, the political situation deteriorated in Burma very, very quickly, roughly around 2019, 2020. So I would be forced to leave anyway, right? So I just want to put this into perspective in the way, like, you can't really build in these countries a master plan saying, I'll stay in Burma forever and I will, I don't know, marry a local girl and build a business and whatever, because you just don't know. You might try to do this, but the moment military government kicks in and uproots everything, it's time to leave, right? And your plan just goes nowhere. Some other countries around, including Thailand, are more, I would call them, pacified. So it's not really, not everything is perfect, but there is no risks like this, at least at the moment, like in Burma.
Like there's a stability that you're not having to have a plan B all the time or a plan C,
yeah,
right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
What was your first impersonation of Burma and Cambodia when you visited those 2 places? Do you remember? Did you remember that first experience or first impression?
Yeah. I think Cambodia the first time was pretty scary, I'd say, because I crossed the border overland from Thailand, not really doing much research. It was raining a lot. It was a rainy season here, which lasts like 3-4 months, sometimes longer. So we're talking about like pretty much big thunderstorms and pouring rain. The road was not there, so it was like mud everywhere, and just walking in this mud, trying to cross the border. People try to sell you stuff and get $5 from you for filling the immigration card, which you can fill yourself, and it's just like a weird experience. So then I crossed the border, and I talked to some guys who were organizing transport, and I told them I want to go to the capital, to Phnom Penh, which was roughly 6 hours drive, and they had what they call a shared taxi, right? So they were waiting for like 3-4 people. Everyone pays some money, and then they will take us to Phnom Penh. So yeah, there was the road was almost non-existent. We were driving through some forests, and on the potholes, like looking like the landmines just exploded there. So the average speed was like, I don't know, 20 miles per hour or something like that. It was raining and the car was crowded, and it was just like, oh my god, I mean, what's happening here, right? It's just like, it was really, really, it was a little bit scary. The cool experience, which I remember until today, was that we stopped on the way and they wanted to take another passenger, and basically there was no space in the car whatsoever, as the way we look at it. So basically the guy literally sat next to the driver on his seat, and
they shared the driver's seat.
Pretty much, yeah. And I was just sitting in the passenger seat in front, and I was like, I just don't get it. Just get me to Phnom Penh. I'm not asking any questions. Just I want to get out, but not in the middle of the rice field, right? So just like, so that was the first experience, right? And Burma was many years later. I think, well, not that many actually. The first time was 2011, end of 2011, and that was end or beginning, probably beginning. Sorry, never mind. Um, Basically, I knew the politics there can be very strict, that there was a military government in charge of the country, but in the same time there were a lot of rumors that the country is opening up, that they will try to push the country towards some kind of democratic system. And a lot of people were hoping for that. So obviously, a lot of
Mhm.
business people, especially because you have one of these quite big Asian countries which is completely backwards, and still a lot of things don't work, and when it's at times it feels like you are still in the 19th century. And until, let's say, today, you were not able to do any business there. So just look at the opportunities, right? It's a country without KFC, without McDonald's, without easy access to Coca-Cola or whatever. Um, so suddenly, all of these companies and many others could just come in and start doing business as soon as the politics improve, and the rumors were that it will be improving very soon. So the first impression was poor, backwards, but with a lot of potential and a lot of energy. You could see a lot of young people on the street. Everyone was really curious. They see, a foreigner on the street, and pretty much, they smile at you, they laugh at you, they come to say hi. Uh, it's really weird because, at that time, I think Thailand was visited roughly by 15, 20 million tourists a year, and Burma probably by 300 to 400, right? So you
Oh,
were,
so the opportunity there was huge.
it was amazing. Yeah, I think for the pretty much for the 5 years I stayed there, the business was absolutely ridiculous in a good way. Everyone who traveled the world and had enough money, they wanted to see Burma before it changes, right? Before you have this
Mhm.
KFCs and McDonald's and so on, because it was still this kind of ancient Asian culture, not really spoiled by anything Western, right? Or anything chain in terms of hotels or fast foods or, coffee shops or whatever. So people were just, we had clients back then who would literally say, I don't care how much it costs, just get me there. And they will be willing to pay, let's say, I don't know, $200 for a night in a low-level two-star hotel, because these were the rates. The hotels were full, right? So hotels
Mhm.
were full. You had a few of these five-star, four-star hotels, but costing you even $1,000 a night or something like this. They were full as well. But if you really wanted to see the country, it was just like, okay, normally the two-star hotel cost like $25 or something, and now it's 200, and they will still pay it
Mhm.
because they just want to see the country before it's like everything else, right? So
So it was like FOMO in a country, right? Everyone was
pretty
FOMOing
much,
into Burma to experience it because there was such a small amount allowed in, right?
very much true. Yeah. So the first impression was, poor backwards, but full of energy and full of potential, right? So
Mhm.
that's why probably roughly a year later, I came up with that idea of, emailing the guy I met before, asking, you have any jobs, pretty much, and it happened that he had, right? So
Yeah,
that was like, okay, I'm going to Burma in that case, right? So
it sounds like another part of your personality is you like to be tested. You like to put yourself in situations that is kind of a sink or swim kind of thing, right? Where you're like, let's see, let's almost like you're trying to, I don't know, learn more about yourself by putting yourself in situations that are not common and not easy. Would you say that that's probably a trait that you carry?
I think so. Yes, yes, that's very much true. The same time, it's like I don't know really why, because I never thought about this, but I try to do the contrary thing to what most people do, right? So like most people will just get a job, let's say, and live 40, 50, 60 years, if possible, sometimes working the same job or at least in the same company. I had a lot of people even my age in Ireland who I worked with. Some of them were from Poland as well, because this was roughly 2004. Poland joined European Union. We were able to travel freely all around European Union. We were able to work legally and in most countries. So basically, many people took opportunity, and they were like, okay, I'm moving to Ireland or England or wherever and getting a job. And like after 3 years, when I actually told people, you know what, I'm done here. I'm going to Asia, and I'm going to see what I can do there and how it's going to work out. Uh, Most people would say I was crazy. They were like, look at you. I mean, you have a good job, right? They pay you this amount of salary. They pay for your future pension. You have health insurance. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm looking at you and I'm wondering the same thing. What are you doing,
Yeah, what are
right?
you doing staying here?
Yeah, because I couldn't really, see myself staying in a company like this for another 40 years just because they pay me and and they promise me a pension. It just wasn't me, right? I just couldn't do that. I can tell you a funny anecdote as well, because there was one manager in that company I worked for, and he was like probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 levels up, because it was a big corporation. So he was managing a department of about 50 people. And I don't know how, I don't remember now, but we kind of knew that he has a fairly nice house somewhere on the coast in Ireland, about an hour drive from his office. He was driving, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old Lexus, and pretty much doing the same thing every day, right? And some people were like really inspired by him, being like, "Oh, look at him! He has a house and he has a nice car." And I look at him, I was like, "Okay, so if I really work hard for additional 10 years, I will be him." And I'm like, no, I mean, I just don't want it. Yeah, I don't want a house in the country I don't enjoy anymore, and a few years old car as a measure of my personal success.
Hmm.
At the same time, doing boring job I don't like for perhaps for the rest of my life, right? So
Yeah, but
I
and
don't
you
know.
must realize that that's not common to be forward looking, to be what some people would call a futurist, where you
Hmm.
spend a good portion of your time uh, kind of guessing what might happen in the future and kind of like running the numbers and scenarios in your head.
Hmm.
Most people that I've worked with in my jobs were focused on the next weekend or the next
Hmm.
month at the furthest. They really didn't think about next year or the next 10 years, like you said, where it's like you kind of saw some of the places that were available for you to go. That's probably, I think, set you apart from a lot of the people that you worked with or grew up with. Is that eye
Maybe
on the
that's the
future?
case. Yeah, yeah, maybe that's the case as well. Yeah, I think yeah, that you might be into something here. I think these days in crypto we see, even in Hex we see the same kind of traits which we just mentioned, right? People are looking to the next weekend or next month, maybe, and that's why sometimes there's so much frustration during bear markets in crypto, right? Someone put some money and they just expected that no matter when you
Yeah.
did it, that in 1 week or 2 months or 6 months you're just going to be rich and retire. And yeah, if you put it at the exactly right moment and the right amount, then maybe that would actually happen. But that's very, very rare, right? Most
Hmm.
people who made money in any kind of way, including crypto, that's years and years of work and understanding what we're actually doing and making some decisions, right? So
Hmm.
it bothers me a bit these days when I see all of this. People who kind of turn away from Hex or from the community because, like, oh,
They bought
it's
at
not
30 or 40 cents. And right
yeah,
now they're looking at 2, 3 cents and they're like, well, I've lost everything. It's over. And
yeah,
it's like,
but
no,
you
no,
have
no, no, no. You have to zoom out and look at those 4 year cycles, look at those 4 year waves. And
exactly.
it just, I don't know, to me, it makes much more sense
It
looking at the
does.
four
It
year
does.
the 4 year cycle than, you know, what's
But it's
happening this year.
yeah, sure, but it's funny, right? Because like you look at this and it's like, okay, let's say you can afford to put I don't know, $10,000 today into Hex, let's say, and maybe it will do very, very well in the next 2 3 years, right? But then your expectations, or some people's expectations, are that pretty much by February you should be rich from this $10,000. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, okay. And if you do anything else with this $10,000, if you put it in the bank or any other financial instrument or financial product, or if you even invest it in your own small business wherever in the world and whatever it's going to be, will you still be rich in 3 months? It doesn't work like this in the real
No.
life, right? So why would you expect crypto is any different than that, right? So
Hmm.
that's my thinking. Like, well, as I said, if you buy something good at the right time, at the right amount, it might happen. But this is like a lottery ticket, and you're just very lucky. Most of the time, it's years of building skills or DCAing and doing all the right moves. Maybe a lot of wrong moves on the way, which you have to learn. And then after a few years, you finally make it. Let's call it like this. But it's always a process, right? In crypto, in normal jobs, in setting up a business, almost no one just hits the jackpot in these areas of life.
Well, and if they do, they usually don't know how to maintain it, right? Or
Yeah,
sustain
true.
it. They're usually fall back down to the beginning and have to start again anyways, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's one thing, if you could accomplish one thing in this life, what do you think that would be? If you ever come up with like one main big goal to shoot for?
Wow, that's a big one. Um, for me, I think it was changing, right? It was changing all the time, and right now, to be honest, I'm not sure anymore. Right? There was a goal for a long time to pretty much be in a space I am in right now, right? In a place I'm in right now, which means for me to be financially free, to not rely on a job or on a boss or on the corporate politics or whatsoever. The funny thing is that I never thought it's going to happen from crypto, and I never expected that it will happen from Hex in the beginning, right? So it's sort
Hmm.
of like, you dream about it, you try it. I was working my ass off and trying, to save some money, trying to do something with it, grabbing all kinds of opportunities, thinking all the time how I can get there. And, even though I started to do crypto in 2017, it was still like, yeah, okay, I'm doing it, but I didn't really think back then it's going to come from there. And then, when my friend told me about Hex, I did some research, I bought some of it, see how it works. And, also I didn't expect that. And suddenly, the Hex price exploded. First, like in 2020, from fraction of a cent to 2 cents, and that was already good enough for me.
Hmm.
Um, then we hanged out there for a while, for a few months, and then it exploded, multiple times of this 2 cents, right? And suddenly I'm just, I was caught off guard in a way, right? So, I think this book which I wrote right now about Hex Pulse, Chain Pulse X, Second Crypto Revolution, I just put, I kept myself busy for the last year to, to make it happen, to make that book, to have that book published. But because, the financial freedom is already here, the book is now published, and I'm trying to promote it as much as I can. Hopefully, it helps some people. I will have to work on a new goal, right? It's like,
Hmm.
obviously, I'm too active to, at the age of 40, decide, what, okay, fine, now I can now retire and forget it. Like I could, but then, after 1 month, after 1 week, actually, probably, I would just walk around the house being like, okay, so what now? Right? I mean, I need to do something, Doesn't necessarily have to be to make more money or
Yeah,
to, create a business, but keep yourself busy somehow. And, I still have to figure it out. So yeah, the
yeah.
first goal is financial freedom, but it's here now. Now I probably need some time to think like, okay, now I want this, right? And let's see how I can get there, right?
Yeah, I chased the goal of financial freedom for about 25 years myself, and I thought that if I ever got to the point where I didn't have to answer to, a boss or a job, that would be fulfilling and I'd be complete, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
I hit that, and I was miserable because I was obviously very excited and happy about this newfound freedom. So I value
Mm-hmm.
freedom very highly,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time I didn't have a goal, and I spent 25 years chasing a goal, and it felt weird not to be chasing a goal. So the goal
Right.
I set was I need to figure out a big enough goal that's going to hopefully keep me busy the rest of this life, and that was to try and help a million families achieve the same thing through the next few waves of crypto. So that's
Mm-hmm.
my new goal right here, and that's the purpose of doing the YouTube, because there's not enough time in a day for me to talk to those people without scaling yourself on YouTube, right?
True. Mm-hmm.
So when you wrote the book, what are you hoping that people, when they read the book, what are you hoping that the message they get, or what action do you hope they take when they read the book?
Okay. So the first idea was like the first target readers, I would say, is people who are outside of crypto, who don't have crypto. Maybe they heard about it, maybe they probably had to hear about it to pay attention to the book, right? And there's a lot of people like this. I have friends like this who sometimes ask me about this weird Bitcoin stuff, right? And
Yeah.
that's where we're getting into a very basic conversation about it's not that weird and it's not that new anymore, right? So
Well,
catch up a little bit.
people in my hometown still ask me, "I heard that Bitcoin went bankrupt. Are you okay?"
All right.
Like that's how much they understand Hex, and they're like my
Yeah.
neighbors.
Yeah. So the first target is the people who don't know anything about crypto, but something triggers their attention already. They are curious, but let's be honest about it. It's not easy to start, right? Sometimes we forget about this. That, like, you, me, some other people who have been in crypto, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. The moment you start, you have to figure out a lot of things, and no one is really giving you the ready solution, right?
Right.
I onboarded a lot of people who didn't have anything, including wallet, including an account on centralized exchange, and suddenly it's a rocket science, right? They don't know how to find even if we can find one, like reliable centralized exchanges. Like, if you just tell them on the phone, you just need to open an account on some exchange to buy crypto, they're just like stare at you being, what are you talking about, right? You
Right,
have to
right.
give
You
them
have to
links,
like
you have
say
to.
in your place, this, I know this exchange is working this month, so
Yeah.
try to use this exchange this month, but don't leave your money there, right?
Correct. Yes. So you start from that. So you start from that point, and I caught myself that I onboarded quite a few people into Hex and also Pulse Chain, Pulse Tech Sacrifices, and I notice I'm getting the same questions over and over again, especially from newbies. Right? It's just like, okay, so how do we do that? How do I transfer? How do I buy? How do I keep it? Where do I keep it? And yeah, I could be doing it, but maybe what you said is very correct here, that there is no scaling to it, right? I have to spend hours and hours on a single person to get them at least to the level that, let's say, they bought Hex, maybe they staked, maybe they didn't, but at least it's in the wallet, not on somewhere where it shouldn't be, uh, and, um, and that's it, right? So I was thinking, like, look, if I write a book and I explain it from scratch, pretty much, not only Hex, but just the basics of crypto, what it actually is, how it works, why it's important as well in terms of the new evolution of money, if we can call it like this. Then like, if I start getting these questions which are simple to answer, I might as well just here's the book, read it. If you still don't get it, if you have any questions, or if you followed it and you still can't open whatever you need to have opened or created in order to have crypto, have Hex in that case, then we can talk, right? But first, read the book, and don't ask me these questions because they're answered there, right? So it's not to be rude, but it's also to save my money, save my time, and pretty much. Yeah, I mean, if you're not willing to read a book, but you're willing to keep sending me a lot of questions, then I might as well not answer, because it's a waste of time, right? You're wasting my time, and all you could do is just spend a few dollars, buy a book, read it, and you're probably set. I hope that I actually have people. I mean, I was about 10 people, 5 people actually. It was 5 people who read the book. They didn't have any crypto, and they followed the instructions pretty much, and now they know enough to have Hex and to keep it safe. And if that
Wow.
goal is achieved by the book, then I'm like, okay, I'm happy with this, right?
That's a huge achievement. If you can use a book and get to that point, 5 people, that's a huge deal. That's a really big deal. I do
Yeah.
really like your website here. You got with the book, The Second Crypto Evolution. I like the pictures, and it says you got a blog on here as well. Do you add to that blog often?
Once a week, yes. And this is actually fragments of the book. I'm just
Oh.
going, chronologically from the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So the content, gradually will become, free online as well. But obviously, it's not that easy to read, right? Because first you would have to wait until all of it is there, and then you will have like probably 50 or 60 different entries. From something which you could probably just read in one evening or two from the book directly. But, maybe some people prefer it that way. I don't know. That's fine. I'm here all for the knowledge, right? I mean, like, I want people to learn from it, and I want them to take the right actions. So whether they buy a book or they follow the blog, doesn't actually matter, as long as they read and they and they do the right thing. So coming back to your first question as well, so the first target is people outside of crypto who we can teach how to get in, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And the second target will be people who maybe have been in crypto for some time, but, well, according to us or to me, they did it all wrong, right? So we have FTX, we have Luna, we have Celsius, we have all the other scams, rug pulls, hacks, you name it. So given that we have tens of thousands of assets which you could buy and do something with, I think there's nothing wrong about telling people, look, you know what, this is Hex. We are going to have Pulse Chain and Pulse X, and that's the things you need, right? That's the things you can buy, and eventually they will make it for you, and so you stop asking me, what about Dogecoin? What about this? What about that? I'm like, I don't know, and I don't care, right? Maybe you can make money on this too, but maybe you lose all your money. Um, so I just focus on the products I like. I focus on the product which made me personally financially free, which I
Mhm.
mentioned in the book. And
Mhm.
I'm betting heavy on Pulse Chain and Pulse X. I sacrificed significant amounts for both projects. I'm
Mhm.
still very optimistic, and I'm not in a rush about the launch whatsoever, because that's what I believe in, and that's the message I put in the book as well. Like, and if you read the book and you say, "What about Dogecoin?" Then I'm like, maybe read it again in that case. Because I mean, I don't know, Which is to say, I'm not saying you can't make money on other crypto, right? And maybe, who knows, maybe you can buy Dogecoin today and it will, be more expensive in the next bull market. Most likely it will. But
Sure.
it's not the safest product out there. It's not the best product out there. It's actually
Right.
a
Well,
bad product.
I try to explain to it like this because I mean, there's 20, 30,000 other coins out there, and you can catch a crazy pump during, especially during the bull market. There's so many people that made a ton of money off of meme coins this last market that I'm happy for them. I'm glad you got lucky,
Mhm.
but it's like wandering through a casino, right? Like there's
Yeah.
so many things catching your eye that are trying to get you to put your money in the machines or on the tables. And I asked him, would you rather take your chances here, or would you rather have a piece of? Would you rather be an owner of the casino?
Right.
And
Mhm.
having Hex pay you interest is like having your own Federal Reserve. It's like being the house.
Pretty much, yeah.
You get to be on the side that is guaranteed to make money versus the side that's got a 95% chance of losing money in the casino, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know if they take it to heart, but that's kind of how I try to address that. I did want to say hi to David Bonnet, aka Vax Bro. He's in the house. Hexflex is in the house. Doug, you're also in the house. Blue Collar Grunt, if you're still around, you and Doug now have wrenches. I gave you guys moderator wrenches, so you're part of the wrench army. It's good to see you here. I did have a question here. With the travel that you have, a lot of people, myself included, would like to create a physical location uh,
Hmm.
called Hexaco. Like we'd like to buy some land and create a, probably it would be mostly a tourist destination for other Hexicans that would
Hmm.
just love to come hang out with Hexicans in one geographic location. Out of the places that you visited, what place do you think would lend itself best to a get up or meet up for Hexicans if someone was going to invest money and actually buy property and create a place for Hexicans to meet?
That's a very interesting one. Okay, I think I'm slightly biased towards anything Asia. I spent the most of my traveling and living abroad years in Asia. Um, and, it's all of these countries here. They like, probably like all of the countries in the world. They have the pros and cons. Thailand, for example, is a sort of a country where that would be relatively easy to do. Well, you can't actually buy land in Thailand, but there are other ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Culture is kind of pleasant. People are nice and they're smiling and they try to
Sorry,
help you.
which one was that?
Say again, sorry.
Did you say culturist is nice?
Culture is nice.
Oh,
Is
the
It's
culture is
easy to,
nice. Got it.
yeah,
Got it.
it's easy to live to
Mhm.
live in. It's easy to get along with local people on a basic level, at least, unless you speak fluent Thai, then you can go better than that. It's a stable country. It's generally a very safe country. What I find a lot in Asia, what I really like, is that safety, that sense of safety, which you will not have in the US. I didn't have it when I was there traveling.
Mhm.
Also, you will not have it in Latin America. Also, to some degree, you will not have it in Europe, especially in bigger cities. And here, I don't really know how it works and why, but it seems like you could live in a city like Bangkok, and it's very unlikely something really bad will happen to you ever, right? Because
Mhm.
it's just not what you hear.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, generally biased towards Asia. If it's a holidays place, probably we're talking about some islands. So they do have some nice islands here, a lot of them, in fact. Nice beaches, great weather, almost all year round. Um, so this kind of factors, I would consider that Thailand would be a good bet. Then if you go to Cambodia, it also wouldn't be a bad decision, but it's also a much less developed country. So your
Mhm.
access to uh, any conveniences, let's call it like this, dramatically declines in comparison to Thailand. It's not very bad. You can still get a lot of things because they obviously import a lot of stuff from Thailand, from Singapore, from Vietnam, and then you can still buy most of the things, but you could see the difference definitely. And also, the same climate, also nice people. So these two countries would work. The third country around here, I'd say maybe Indonesia. Some places in Indonesia.
Is
Oh,
Bali considered in Indonesia?
yes, it's considered Indonesia. So it's just the whole Indonesia is pretty much well, almost 100% Muslim country, but Bali is Hindu, so it's more relaxed, and you can get away with many more people, many more things, in terms of, I don't know, drinking alcohol, having wild parties, and so on. Bali is where it's all happening. Simply because the culture is different there. If you try to do the same thing in other places of Indonesia, then it's not like it's not happening, but it's just tough, right? So if you want to have more of a, let's call it, party place, I would definitely not go to any other island in Indonesia, right? Because then you will have to hide a little bit. You will have to work on that. Alcohol will be very expensive because of some religious tax and so on. So yeah,
Sure.
Bali will do, other places will not. And yeah, now the second destination as a whole, I would say something in Latin America. Some people prefer this kind of vibes, right? Many people in Latin America understand more English than Asians in generally in my part of the world. You could also, maybe you speak Spanish or you could learn it, so then it's the whole different experience, right? If you don't speak a word of Spanish and you try to learn it from today, if you really commit to this, in 1 year you can probably be fairly fluent. Try that with a Thai language or Cambodian language, and I wish you good luck. I mean, unless you are a linguist or a musician who just hears all these different intonations and it's easy for you, then okay. But for a standard normal guy, you probably need to spend 5 to 10 years learning Thai versus, let's say, a year learning Spanish. So there are advantages of Latin America which Asia doesn't offer, right? Because it's easier. It's also culturally closer and easier. It doesn't actually matter if you're a religious person from US or you're not religious, but also Latin America is closer culturally in a way, right? Because we all grew up, or most of us grew up, I mean, in the US and in Europe, in some version of a Christian culture, and so we also have some versions of Christian culture in Latin America, right? So it's sort of like, yeah, it's very different in some ways, but there is a lot of similarities. But in the same time, if you try to compare your upbringing to how people grow up in Thailand, let's say, then it's completely different. It's a different rules of the game, different culture, different beliefs. And in the beginning, it's all fascinating, exotic, and interesting. But after a while, it might get a little bit boring and difficult and alienating, because you just stop understanding how they think and why they do things they do, why they say things they say. So it's a choice, it's a personal choice, I would say, for future Hexico. What do we want more, right? Do we want to make it exotic and crazy? Then it's Asia. Or do we want to make it more familiar and predictable, which might be Latin America? Where exactly? I would go for something which has good safety record in Latin America, at least, more or less, right? So there are places which are safer than the others for sure, right? So probably
That's
some
really
kind of island. Yeah, go on.
an interesting. I wouldn't have thought of safety first. I usually think of weather first myself,
Mhm,
just because I've spent so much time working my working life in the cold that I have
mhm,
no desire to spend more time in the snow than I have to. But Doug here
mhm,
in the comments says he wants his piece of Hexaco to have snow skiing. So that's interesting. I actually see Hexaco almost like an embassy. You know how every country has embassies around the world and it's
mhm,
considered a part of that country. I think Hexaco would be awesome if you had a couple places in the States that were, Hexaco or Hex owned,
mhm.
where the Hexicans would meet, and then Asia, there'd always be almost like an embassy or a safe place for a Hexican to go and know that they've got family, so to speak, or some crypto family there that has their
Right.
back. So that's something I hope that we get to experience and achieve it during this next bull wave in 24, 25. personally.
Very
Let's go with
possible.
now. I've had this screen up because I don't want to gloss over this. Right now, you can pick up the book on Amazon, and right now, you if you have the Kindle Unlimited, it's free for today. Is that correct? Do you know if that changes or when that
That's
changes?
correct. Yes, I think for additional 24 or 48 hours, it will be like this. Then
Hmm.
it will come back to a standard pricing. Basically, Amazon allows to do these kind of promotions for 5 days per month, right? So
Hmm.
I think I'll be doing it quite regularly because, as I mentioned, it's not a money project for me. It's more of the more people I can reach, the better. So the idea here is like, look, as soon as they open up it again, maybe even on 1st of January, as soon as I notice that I can do it again, I'll just do it again every month, to make sure that the more people have it, we spread the word wider, and hopefully more people, first of all, will get into crypto. And
Hmm.
once they do, they get the right ones from the start, and not some weird stuff which would make them bankrupt in the next few months or few years, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on it and read it because as soon as I read it, I know that it's my a light bulb's going to go off my head for the type of people that the book would be the most useful for, and then I can go and order five, six, 10, a dozen of these books because I'll know, the type of personality that would pick up that book, read it, and take action. So that's really awesome. I can't wait to get a hold of it. Let me stop sharing that screen right there so they can see us again. You also do car racing, is that correct?
Amateur, yes, but I'm into cars. I'm into fast cars. Yeah,
You're into fast cars.
yeah.
And when did that start? Did that start as a teenager or as you got older?
As I got older, actually, like I owned a few cars in different countries. Usually not as fast as I would like them to be, and I didn't really have that much time to really focus on that. It was mostly, well, after I became financially free. I started to think of some other ways of making me busy and developing new hobbies, let's call it like this. So I was always attracted to cars, but also due to the nature of my jobs and moving countries all the time, that wasn't so easy, right? So I mean,
Mhm.
being a few years there, a few years here, it's just like sometimes I owned one, sometimes I didn't, depended if I needed this or not. Um, I was also a little bit afraid to commit to buying a really nice car somewhere where I might actually live in 2 years. So just like,
Mhm.
well, then what do I do? Maybe you can sell it, but maybe you can't, right? So then it's a big issue, and taking it across the border usually is not an option because of all the taxes and imports, duties and
Mhm.
fees here. It's just not feasible option. But now, since I settled in Thailand in a way, I got more into this. I try to regularly improve my skills as well, driving skills. I did the official racing license in Thailand, I think this year, yeah, around March. It's fairly easy, just 2 days course on a racetrack, right? So basically, you go with professional drivers and professional racing drivers who are actually competing on the national and international level. And on day one, it's a little bit of theory and you practice on like sort of like a football pitch, but with a lot of cement on it, and they put different obstacles for you, and you have tasks to do, right? Just do not hit the cones and so on, with having still a good time doing the whole track. And once they know you do it, then we went to the proper racetrack, which is roughly 100 miles away from Bangkok. It's an international standard racetrack. They rent it for one day, and basically we have to do, I don't remember now, 20 or 30 laps with the instructor on that track. And you just for this one, you need to have a time below 1 minute 30 seconds. If you have below 1 minute 30 seconds, you passed and you get the license. So with this license, officially you could start racing on the national level in Thailand. I didn't get there yet. I'm not sure if I will. I was more interested to, if you have a nice car, then you go for an open track day and then just drive around and compete with yourself, not with the other guys really,
Mhm.
because
I was gonna say, like, people think there's a barrier to entry with crypto. That what you're explaining that's a huge barrier to entry if you want to just start racing cars. I had no idea that you had to go through all those steps.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's not that difficult. Like if you find a course and they do it, But I mean, yeah, you cannot really take part in the, let's say, national level competition without a license, right? You have to show it that you know what you're doing, so you don't kill yourself and other people. Hopefully,
Hmm.
um, yeah. So I got the paper probably out of vanity because I didn't really planned to take part in this national competition. Also, I don't have a proper race car. Yeah, I'm using my daily driver, so maybe I will get into this at some stage in the future. Buy one, or just buy a proper car which you can build into, or you can transform into a race car. Maybe that's an option, but that's also a full-time hobby, right? And I
Hmm.
actually like to do a lot of things. So it's just like, let's see how it all plays out. Hard to say at present. Yeah.
Yeah, do you have a strategy or a plan for the next bull run? Like at what point you'll be taking what amount of profit? Because I find that a lot of people aren't ready for the bull
Mhm.
market. They're ready for the bear market. They'll just buy the dips and they'll hang in there. And then the
Mhm.
bull market happens so quickly and so furiously
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
they're just like they're freaking out. They're like, do I buy? Do I sell? Like, what do I do? And so I find it's easier to set those targets and those sells ahead of time, so you're not trying to deal with your emotions as you're like euphoric and you're looking at your staker app or your Metamask or whatever, and you're seeing that number just go insane. Do you do that as well, or how do you handle the bull markets personally?
Well, okay. I'd say I don't have like the very specific plan with some specific price targets.
Hmm.
The way I'm looking into it was changing, right? My first bull market was 2017, then the
Hmm.
second one was the last year's one, and now
Hmm.
we are waiting for the third one, right?
Right.
So the first one I was just experimenting. I didn't really know what I'm doing, so obviously, not really good decisions made there. In the second one, I took a little bit of profit from the liquid hex which I had at that time. From today's perspective, I could have sold it all and rebuy now, let's say, and probably I would be much better off. Um, but it's just not how I was looking at this at that time, right? I was just looking like, look, okay, I have enough money to sustain myself on the level I want to exist for the next few years. Do I really want to take a risk and sell it at, let's say, I don't know, 40 cents or 50 cents? And I actually don't know if it's going to $1 or it's going back to 2 cents, because I didn't know, right? I mean, I'm not sure if any of us really knew. You could suspect it, maybe you could, listen to some people who were saying this, but I think it's very, uh, very difficult to actually say that, once we hit the previous all-time high, that
Mhm.
there was a lot of people in the community, or even a lot of traders who are just like, okay, that's it, I'm selling everything, I'm out. I don't think many people did that.
No, no. Well, and
Because
I was so euphoric that I was like, I believe that we had decorrelated ourselves from the rest of crypto. So I thought,
Mhm.
okay, well, hopefully we won't crash when Bitcoin crashes, but
Right.
we did. So
Yeah.
that was another lesson for me, even being in several waves, being like, okay, the waves are still a thing until they're not, right? Until
Yeah.
we prove that we're not correlated to crypto and the stock market and the U.S. economy, then
Right.
we need
Yeah.
a we need a plan for those things, right?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I'd say this my planning for the next bull market, because we actually don't know when it's going to start and when it's going to end, which is more important, I guess. Uh, but I think with the furious of experience I have, I'll be looking at all this. I would call them the social signals, pretty much, right? We've seen it all in the last bull market as well, right? So after Richard actually made the Bitcoin top and Ethereum top call, I think around April, May, we had a few really good months for Hex and some other cryptos as well, and then that was it. But it was also the time, like around September, there was like this the end of this DeFi summer they were talking about, and that was the time again when everybody was talking about crypto, including your hairdresser, right? And everyone was in, and a lot of influencers also in the Hex system were like, pretty much, screw 50 cents, we are going to $7. And I think if it starts repeating itself, not only in Hex but everything else, that's the time to reasonably go out, right? I mean, start going out maybe. I'm not saying just dump everything right away because you think it's going to, it's going to drop again by 90%. But once everyone is euphoric, like you mentioned, maybe that's the time when you should start looking into your exit strategy.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I also don't want to put any goalpost in terms of price, right? Because I actually don't know what are we going to do until that time. I could put a goalpost, let's say, at 50 cents, so it's roughly the same all-time high. But I don't know. Maybe we'll just blast through it to 60 something, and then you're like, so now what? Do you sell at 60 something, or you believe it's just the beginning, right? So it's like it's not easy to decide, but once you probably look and compile a lot of different things, right? So the social signals, I'd say, the major financial economic news, so the state of US economy or the global economy, you should take all of this into consideration, and even though, for example, I'm not a big fan of, let's call it traditional media or even Bloomberg per se, I'm reading some of the newsletters from Bloomberg, for example, just to have a general understanding what's happening and which direction we are going. And okay, some of them are too complicated, and I don't even know what I'm reading, or actually don't care about it. But if you spend some time doing it, like once a week or twice a week, just look at the major financial news, even though if you believe they are all biased and fake and so on, you still get a sense of where are we going, right? So now everyone knows what's happening, right? I mean, we might go very soon to recession. The interest rates are being increased all the time, less so recently. There is a correlation between the economy, interest rates, and some other things. So once you start understanding this a little bit, I think what I would be looking in the economy would be, we will do a total reversal. They start printing money again, and that's probably when we have a proper bull market. But then maybe you will start getting news again. Okay, inflation is growing again. Maybe they are turning off the printers again, and that's a sign that you don't have much time left. That's my way of looking at it. And if the crypto market is going to correlate itself again with everything else, then you should start looking how to exit. The good thing, I think, for me personally, is that I have a lot of long-term stakes. I do keep some hex. I do have some hex liquid, which I would be able to sell at whatever level I decide is fine for me. But then, even if I make a mistake, and let's say I sell all my liquid hex at 50 cents, and then we go to $2. Yeah, I know it will hurt for a while, but then I still have all these stakes which will be coming out for years to come. So that it's not like I just dropped everything, at the low price.
Well, and we'll have hopefully we'll have Pulse and PulseX and Hex, and then all of the other derivatives that are attached to the Hex ecosystem that'll all be kind of trading against each other too. One of these coins will be on sale more than another, or one of these coins will be a lot higher than another based on the day or the week. So you can actually just kind of swing trade if you want amongst the same ecosystem that you believe in, which is also something I'm looking forward to. Speaking of the bull market here, we got this is Hex Travel, which is a website. When did you start this one?
This one was started a few months ago, actually, right? So I put some of the profits which I did in crypto mostly last year, and I put myself back to work. I call it in something I know, which is travel business, but this time without having a boss, right? So basically, I'm just my own boss. It's a one-man army here with a few people who are helping me from time to time. The idea here is basically to help people who, for whatever reason, need help to arrange travel to some exotic destinations, and just put it all together for them, give them an advice as well. Like, if someone like me many years ago came up with an idea, I want to go for 2 weeks holidays to Thailand, let's say, or Cambodia or wherever, what do I do, right? So, well, I'm targeting here mostly people who, as you can see from the pictures, mostly will be able to afford a lot of these experiences pretty much, And the reason I'm doing it, because this is the most fun. This is the fun to work for me, right? I don't really want to work with clients who, are looking for a cheap trip to Indonesia, because then, it's a lot of work. and it's not fun, right? It's just like, it's not really about the margins or the profit here, because you can make it on every level, 3 stars, 4 star, 5 stars. It depends how you price it and what your client is willing to pay for it. But it's way more fun to organize for someone, a private jet landing in Phuket in Thailand, pick up by supercars, and drive directly to the chartered yacht, than dealing with 3 stars hotel for $50 a night, right? So
Right.
I would do stuff which I think are actually cool, right? And all of these experiences I just mentioned, from private jet to yacht, are cool for many people, right? So that's the idea behind it.
It looks like a lot of fun, and something I really appreciate in not just this, but your book and the website for the book, is you have a really good eye for detail.
Right.
The way things line up and complement each other, I would say, that's really something I think you've probably picked up working in travel, is that the little details matter to people when they're looking for service or looking for an experience.
They
So
do, yes.
you've got a great eye for detail, I've noticed in these websites, and I think that in your book we'll also see a lot of really good eye for detail in explaining things and getting the message across, which makes me even more excited for that. We do have some girls that are only 18 dating website in our chat here, so I'm welcome, ladies. It's great to have you. We have Hex Huddle. And Doug says, this will be my first bull market, 100% staked from 4 years to Quattro Cinco or 5555. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And so this is kind of the fun thing, is once you get to the point where money's not an option, for instance, these people are probably spending, I'm guessing, $20,000 and up on their vacations. They're going to some of these destinations and doing the luxury travel. Would you say that's about the range right there?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, the average. So I had a few clients who I organized stuff for even before the website was up, simply because I worked in that industry for 12 years, and I know a lot of people and they know me. So sometimes they know I'm somewhere in Asia. Sometimes they even know I'm in Bangkok, and it was just a random message I got being like, "Hey, I'm going to Thailand, or I want to do 3-4 countries in Southeast Asia in 3 weeks. Can you help?" So that's how the idea also started. I did it a few times, and I was like, "Hey, I can actually make it more official, more formal, in a way that there is actually a company and not just me, who might run away with your money, right?" So basically, that was the idea here. Yeah.
Wow, that looks great. So when you guys get your Pulse and PulseX, and then when it does its 1000x and you're ready to do some traveling, check out Hex Travels there with our buddy Mark, and make sure to take his book along to read on the plane, right?
That would be nice.
I mean, I haven't had a chance to read much of your writing, but I'm looking forward to doing that, definitely. But you said earlier that you're better with the written word than speaking. I think you're 100% wrong on that. Just hearing some of the stories and experiences of your life, you've definitely got a lot of stories to tell. You're a very entertaining person in person.
All right,
so
thank you.
I can imagine you'd be someone I'd want to sit next to at a party. You've also pushed Bangkok and Bali way up my list of places to go visit, because I've got a list in my head, and yeah, those have been moved much closer to the top for myself. So I appreciate that as well. Other than that, I want to thank you so much for coming and spending some time with the audience, letting us get to know you, letting us get to know the story, and we really appreciate you contributing to this community, because the more resources we have to share this message and break down that learning curve, the stronger we become. So thank you so much for taking time and for writing the book. Really appreciate that.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you everyone for listening, and I appreciate your time as well. If you can, please reach for the book, and especially now when it's free, everything counts towards the ranking as well. So if let's say a few hundred people download it today or tomorrow for free, it still pushes it in the rankings as a bestseller in certain categories. It was #1 in investing basics this way.
Awesome.
This week, sorry. I don't choose these categories. I found it quite random. Every time I open the page, it just shows me like, oh, you're number one in basic basics, you're number 26 in computer science. And I'm like, do anything, but that's Amazon just doing its stuff depending on what the book is about. But if someone's looking probably these days for investing basics, they go to the category. The first thing they see is Second Crypto Revolution, Hex, Pulse Chain, PulseX, which hopefully will interest them enough, right? Because maybe they were
Definitely.
actually looking to invest in crypto and so on and so forth. So the way it works, the more downloads we can get, the more purchases we can get, the better it looks like it looks in the rankings in Amazon, and then we reach more people, right? And more people hopefully read it and take the right action, and it helps everyone. Yeah, we save the people from themselves, we save the people from other scams like Richard is doing. We pump our bags as well. So I mean, I see only benefits from spreading the word and doing as much content and sharing as much content as we potentially can.
Yeah, in fact, I would urge you to jump on more of the streamers podcasts here, because there's so many Hex streamers right now that would love to sit down and promote your book to the rest of the community, anyone who hasn't heard of you yet. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely reach out to all the streamers and tell them they should definitely have you on their shows. Bitfinesse says, really enjoy Mark speak. More would be nice. So see, he's up for a podcast right here.
All right.
Got that time
Great.
on the road. So it's nice to see you here, Bitfinesse. Appreciate you. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I actually took a nap at night, so I'd be a little more awake myself. And so I appreciate you working with me to make this work. Other than that, is there anything else that people should look up or that they should know if they're headed out to Bangkok? Is there a time of the year that you would recommend over another?
Well, the time of the year I'd say is pretty much now. The best weather you can get in Bangkok is roughly from November to February, maybe March. Then it's getting much hotter and you can still come, right? But then the temperatures in Fahrenheit will be above 100 every day. So it's not ideal for many people. It's a bit too hot to actually enjoy the city. And then roughly around May, June, the monsoon season starts, the rainy season, which is actually not that bad in Bangkok, right? I mean, sometimes it's raining every day, but 1 hour, 2 hours a day, then it clears, and the temperatures are lower as well. It's below 100 for sure, around 85, 90 maybe. So I would say either now, which is what they call a Thai winter, because the temperatures is probably around 85 today, or in the rainy season as well, which is going to be fine, unless you are going to the beaches outside of Bangkok. Then rain is not your friend. City is always your friend, so that's fine. I would actually avoid the hot period, so March to May. I would say don't do it, because it's not going to be the experience you're aiming for.
Okay, cool. Now, to celebrate, I appreciate you coming on here. I'm actually going to release another word for my scavenger hunt. I have a scavenger hunt where I'm releasing 12 words, 12 seed words to a wallet, and whoever gets there first can take the money out of the wallet. And so I've been working with other YouTubers, helping them reach goals like getting subscribers or tweets and retweets. And so whenever we reach a goal as a community, I like to release a word out into the wild and let these people put this up. And this word seems pretty interesting. It's orient. So orient is another one of the words on my scavenger hunt, and you can find the goals that we're shooting for on my website, hexrayvisioncrypto.com. I've got all the words listed there, and I've got all the goals that we're working towards as a community. So here's another word, orient. Earlier, I had Randy Kolarski on because he hit 7,000 subs, and the word we released there was fire. So go onto the website, grab the words. If you guys want me to promote your goals and help you, I feel like the release of this book is definitely a huge goal that you've met, Mark. So to celebrate that, we've got Orient, and thanks again for coming on. I look forward to speaking to you some more in the future, and hopefully meeting in person.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Likewise.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, and thanks again for making time to talk with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, and
All
good night.
right. See you guys.